here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, on my line right now, before the Yanks take on the Blue Jays on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network, is another IBWA writer, Mr. Eric Katz. Eric, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I seem to be getting you guys and the writers in that organization. I love it. And tell me a little about who you are. We see you all over Twitter at Eric Katz, at RepBX, and everything like that. Tell us who Eric Katz is before we get into the series.
Well, I write for a website called BellyaSports.com. I won an award this past year for the best article. Ironically enough, it was about I was actually defending Aaron Boone, depending on what side of the aisle you are on when it comes to him. And I won an award for that. I'm also part of the Internet Baseball Writers Association of America, where you see my articles everywhere. You might love them, you might hate them. I don't care. Just make sure your opinion is extra colorful so I can laugh.
Well, I'm interested to know. So it's a little different than the BWA, the Baseball Writers of America, right? Tell us the difference.
This one, there's no member. There's like a one-time fee of like $75, which you pay that, and then you're a member for life. The Baseball Writers Association, it's very sophisticated to get in. That one you can vote for the Hall of Fame, the actual real deal. The Internet Baseball Writers Association has their own thing, but but you're not voting for the people who are ultimately going to get into Cooperstown.
Is that one of your goals, Eric? I got to ask that.
Well, right now, the only goal I'm keeping up with right now is to get into a Major League Baseball press box.
Well, we talked about that a bit offline. I said, does this get you any press credits? You're like, not yet. You know what? We'll get there, though. Even as podcasters, it's kind of a struggle bus in that regard, if you will. But I got to ask you, go ahead.
Well, it's only going to grow because, like, if you think about it, it's only because the medium has become a lot bigger over the years, and I think part of that's due to part of that was inspired by COVID. And I think overall though, you're seeing a lot more creators out there where instead of just having those giant newspapers or giant internet places, you're going to see probably more factions where, well, if a team wants the coverage, they'll have to. I mean, right now, just with COVID and everything, it's kind of screwed up coverage for football and baseball because now these PR guys are on a power trip
because they're able to contain it and whatnot.
Right.
Eric, you mentioned you wrote an article defending him, and I'm starting to think after the trade deadline, which the Yankees won. I know it doesn't look like it on the Tuesday, but Jazz Chisholm is the biggest acquisition of the entire deadline. Can we agree on that?
Mark Leiter Jr. was on the phone.
Yeah, and that was great too. Wait, Mark Leiter Jr. is on your phone?
No, in terms of you saying Jazz Chisholm's the best one. I'd probably argue saying Mark Leiter Jr. was probably the Yankees' biggest acquisition. I mean, sure, Jazz. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a energizer bunny to the lineup. But Yankees need help in the bullpen. And, I mean, contrary to what it's been as of late, it's been pretty good this year. Clay Holmes has had his struggles and he's been in a slump as of recently. But the Yankees kind of need a boost there because, man, it's just been eaten alive by injuries. And instead of a reclamation project, Mark Leiter Jr. was coming in with he's the strikeout pitcher they need. And, you saw it against the Phillies when he struck out Brandon Marsh with the bases loaded.
That's right. Now, what's interesting about this deadline is, and I started to think about this as some others were tweeting this. What if right in front of us, Eric, was the trade deadline? Is that what he was talking about the whole time when he said it's right in front of us? Is that what he was referring to? And we just didn't even see it till it happened?
I don't think he was referring to anything specific. I think, we saw him use this again last year. But the thing about it is I think he's just talking about the games and wins and things, the games and wins and things like that. I think he was referring to that more or less than the trade deadline because Booney, he's got a say, but he doesn't have a final say.
Well, and I would say now that he's equipped with the tools to win, I think we're seeing a very different team. But in your estimation here, before the big win against Boston Extras last week, they did get swept by the Mets. They had that terrible blown loss against the Red Sox. Everybody thought it was going to be the same old. But from your eyes, Eric Katz, what changed in that Saturday? Was it the fact that they started to score more runs the last couple of games alone?
I think so. I think part of it too is, guys got healthier, so that helped. You knew guys are coming back. Because keep in mind, though, the Yankees were going through their struggles. Their injured list was pretty bad. I don't think you can. I don't think you there's. I don't think you can equate it to just like one specific thing. Their injury list was pretty bad too, so you're going to struggle there when you're that injured and JD Davis is your cleanup hitter. Um, I think I think injuries were certainly a part of it. I mean, but it also the season just evens out. You're going to go through a hot stretch where you're just you can do no wrong, and the Yankees did. And then you're going to go through a stretch where it's just the sky is falling, especially in New York. And the funny thing about it is, Baltimore went through the same stretch as we did too. So that's what makes it ironic.
I was going to ask you about the we versus them kind of verbiage because you are a writer and you're a sports journalist. But it seems like you're easily able to say you attach yourself to the Yankees or you're just rooting for them. How does that impact your journalism? Is belly up more like, for the fan, I guess you'd say as well?
I write all teams, and it's not just the Yankees. I don't just praise the Yankees all the time. I've taken my fair share of shots against them, as you've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make sure the top is expansive because I don't want it to be too short. But I've taken my fair share of shots at him. I've ripped Brian Cashman to shreds before, even though I've met the guy before. I've said, I've talked about the things they needed to do before too. I praised them when they needed praising, and I rip them when they need ripping. I mean, I play a fair game.
What I loved about your ex during the trade deadline was that you were right on top of every move possible, giving your own thoughts. Is it fun to cover the deadline like that? And it seems like you become a source at that point, don't you?
Not really, but I like putting my own opinion out there of what I thought of this move or that move or this other move. I like to kind of put my opinion out there. If you love it, great. If you don't love it, good. I'm okay. I try and when the how nasty social media can be. I try and just ignore the comments. I just you can hate it or you can love it, but either way, you're responding to what I have to say. So apparently you need me in some sort of way to put something out there. Because if I stop writing or stop tweeting, you're going to have nothing to respond to me about. You're just going to tweet at me, and I'm just it's going to be the equivalent of talking to a wall.
Well, it seems like you had a better day than some other journalists, and some of them might have been blocking you and I, John Heyman. But anyway,
I don't understand. I don't know what I could have done to have that man block me. I've actually met the guy too before. I met him a couple years ago in Tampa at spring training. He happened to be. It was me, and I don't know if you know him. His name is Mario Gomez.
I've heard of him. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I
he's
him.
he's like the equivalent of Spike Lee at the stadium. He was. We were going to our. Actually, he was leaving the day before we were, so he needed a. He texted me one night saying, "I need a. I'm leaving the next after the game, but I doubt they're gonna I doubt they're gonna let me take my luggage into the stadium." Which I'm just like, I don't think that this isn't the '90s, Mario. And so I said, why don't you just keep the stuff at my house, which I was renting at the time in Florida. We'll take an Uber to the game because I'm not far from the stadium, and we'll watch the game and have a good time. And we did. We met Brian Cashman that day. And then we happened to run into John Heyman because we were both leaving the stadium at the same time. And then we took pictures with them. That was the ironic part. And it was the year where it was the winter of Arson Judge. And I don't know why the guy blocked me. I feel like he's a little more sensitive than what Marcus Stroman used to be. Marcus Stroman's kind of lightened up.
No, he's definitely lined up. I think this team has helped him be a little more looser in the clubhouse, and he seems to be having a lot of fun. I will say that. But
I think he was just frustrated with all the losing early on.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course he fired the guys up on the diamond as well. But Eric, the point is there are journalists like yourself that are going to give the reputable information and the real information. So what does it mean when you start hearing podcasters and others say, hey, you know what, I just saw what Eric Katz said on his feed? Has that happened to you yet?
It has. I've seen some of my things be cited in Wikipedia articles. When people want to talk about it, I'm thinking, great. All publicity is good publicity.
let's get to the series at hand. Stroman's on tonight, but I love the lineup. I mean, you look at this lineup, and Giancarlo's in it, Jazz Chisholm. I mean, this is a lineup I can get behind. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, Giancarlo's back. Even though he was his first game back, he was actually hitting the ball really well against Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, they were out, but that ball was coming 105 miles off that bat, and they just made a great play on it. And unfortunately, he was unlucky that series. But I think Giancarlo's going to get back to doing what Giancarlo does best. You're going up against a Toronto team that's kind of shed a little bit. I thought they should have shed a lot more because, to be truthful, I don't see them. I really don't see them going to the postseason next season either. They're going to try, but to me, I'm just like, your team, the window. You just couldn't you couldn't take advantage of the window to try and win a championship. I think the window is closing, and it's getting even more closed. I mean, even though they went to the postseason last year, they really weren't that good. But
the window being I mean, I've seen the Blue Jays go through a couple of windows, by the way, the Batista years, and now you got the Guerrero and Bichette years. And are you thinking, Guerrero could ever leave that place? Is that what you're saying here? That window's closing from the Blue Jay?
I think just their winning window right now. I mean, they could open another one because they're the type of team that because they don't really spend like the Yankees or the Dodgers. They try and capture their contention in windows, and it's kind of like not nearly what kind of it's not a little better than what Oakland used to do, which which I think Cleveland's kind of become that now, where you couldn't count them in, but you couldn't necessarily count them out either. Which now obviously that's passed, and Cleveland's now become that where you can't count them in, but you can't necessarily count them out either. Obviously, this year you're counting them in because man, they are I mean, pitching's a little questionable, but I think they got the bullpen and they got the bullpen and the bats to really make some noise.
Well, I tell you, talk about the Guardians, right? And let me tell you about that team. This is a big weekend. We're all watching it because the Orioles are there. But
Certainly beat the pants out of them. They certainly beat the pants out of them last night.
As I said on X, this is the series that will show you why you need to win the AL East, because you will not win against the Guardians in a 3-game series. Am I right?
Depends on their starting. It will depend on their starting pitching though, because I really don't trust their starters. Because we saw it last year with San Francisco where their strategy was bullpen, bullpen, bullpen. But eventually, around September, that bullpen, you saw it being overused. That bullpen looked worse than a used car on a cold day, and they eventually fell apart. Even though they had a wild card spot at one point in September, but then I think they only had 8 wins in September and completely fell apart.
I look at your posts sometimes. I think you're either throwing like a fake brick at the TV or something, or you could see your frustration, you could see your elation. Is it a roller coaster for you like it is for everybody else watching this team, or what?
Absolutely. I don't know. I've always wondered, and something I really do wonder is I really wonder if a baseball team's ever sent somebody to the hospital because of a heart attack. Not something self-induced but a legitimate heart attack. Not somebody being stupid and hurting their hand on something.
Eric, from where you sit right here, and you're writing for Belly Up Sports, we talk about the deadline a little bit, but do you think the Yanks are truly in a good spot right now to finish out, even finish first? I mean, are they in a good spot? I feel like they are, but I want your perspective.
Boy, obviously it's gonna come down to health, and if obviously you have Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, Jazz, and obviously sprinkle Verdugo and sprinkle some Verdugo and some Volpe in there. I think they're in all right shape. I mean, again, it's October. If you get hot at the right time, look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't really. Yeah. It's hard to. I mean, if you're in contention, it's hard to kind of take the regular season seriously sometimes because you saw last year with Arizona just squeak in. They go ahead and sweep the Brewers, who were a very good team that year. They go ahead and just absolutely manhandle the Los Angeles Dodgers.
You see the Phillies a couple of years ago, right? With that whole run. I mean, it happened. So.
They really should have had another one last year, but they fell apart. Which I had Nola. They had Nola at home. Which Nola that year was unhittable at home, and they just couldn't get it done. Which I think this year though they are dangerous. I mean, yeah, they're
That's
going through it. They're going through it now. Granted, they are going through it now, but again, every team goes through it. Some Yankee fans don't understand that you're going to go through it. This season is too long. You're not going to be the '98 Yankees where everything breaks perfectly.
all right. A couple more things before the game starts here. People watching your feed know you write for Belly Up Sports, know you're in the IBWA, but they don't know how you got there. Like, has this been a passion of yours to write for the sport in sports and specifically for baseball?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've just baseball has always been a favorite of mine. I like it's just a long season, so there's so many different stories. It's not like football; you have to wait week to week for a story to erupt, which I get sometimes with a story it becomes more. There's a lot more action but football is a lot more micro stories where you
Mm-hmm.
have to really be inside the team to really get it. Baseball, like there's always something going on, something you can think of, an opinion you can have. I mean, obviously there's a Hall of Fame for writers for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They do elect writers, believe it or not. You can say what you want about them, but they do elect writers and broadcasters.
They do. It's called the Ford Frick Hall of Fame section of the Cooperstown, I believe.
Although
Hey,
the Hall of Fame's getting worse now because now players that we saw growing up are getting in.
well, either that's getting older or everybody's getting in type of thing, I think is what you're going for.
Well,
Eric,
Adrian Beltre, I think deserved in. Todd Helton should have been in a long time ago. Um, and because my thing with Colorado Rockies is, well, you have to hit on the road too.
mm-hmm.
And you don't just have the thin air in Colorado. You have to go to Wrigley when it's windy. You have to go to a very pitcher friendly ballpark that was Miami before Marlins Park, Joe Robbie Stadium, and you have to go to Philadelphia. You have to go to Seattle. You have to not Seattle. You have to go to Los Angeles in the dead of July.
Yeah. Yeah.
You still gotta perform there too before you can say, oh, they have the thin air. Well, you have to hit on the road too, and Todd Helton did do that.
A couple more things, Eric. You would talk about the press box. Now, when they come to your town, you're in Milwaukee, right? I don't know if I can disclose it or not, but you're
Yes.
in Milwaukee. When they come to town, like they did this year, did you try for a press credential for the Yankees Brewers? Did you get close to the field? I mean, did you try to get a little access when they were here?
No, I didn't. It's getting a press pass now is just an extremely complicated thing now at the major league level, and you got to just know the right people to do it. I mean, I was trying actually. If someone was I know someone who was in town. He actually covers the Marlins, who was in town and was trying to get me in, and it just didn't work out. And actually, it was there. That's a whole another story because he got affected too by that. And I was trying to do the Brewers and Marlins game. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. I was gunning for it. I was gunning for it, but unfortunately, it just didn't happen. So hopefully, we can make that happen the next time around.
Why not? Now, and then I was going to ask about sources. Obviously, you're following what everybody else is following, but in your writing and in your connecting and even in the IBWA, any sources you've been accumulating in this sports journalism journey of yours?
Not going to give them away. But yeah, you meet people. It really depends on where you are. If you go out to a bar, okay,
Mhm.
you'll meet a lot of people at a bar. People that you never thought would go there. But you might accrue some sources there. You'll go to events. You might accrue some sources there because teams always have the teams have tried to put at least some teams have tried to make a point of putting on a great offseason event. The Brewers were going to have one this past winter, but it was around the time where Milwaukee got hit with a bad snowstorm, and
Mm.
they just wasn't going to happen. It was going to be too complicated. The logistics were just too much, so it couldn't happen. It was right before spring training, so they had to do away with it. I know one year they had an event, a smaller scale event. A lot of people came, and it was at a bar not far from the stadium, and you got to hang with the players, drink with the players. Actually, what the Brewers do is they'll actually have a night where, depending on the bar, the players will buy your drinks.
Huh. Well, I
Big
got to fly
deal.
my fiance in out there to see what that's about. We're actually
Uh,
going to Woodbridge on Monday night for that big Yankee bash. It's amazing when you know the right people, you actually find how accessible these players are. From afar, it looks like they're not, but then boom, they're right in front of you at Woodbridge and other places, right?
you can, I mean, if you get them away from the field, they're just like normal people. I mean, sometimes it's pretty easy to get a general idea on where these guys live during the season.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
actually, we had met Nestor, and that was really special. He's just a really down to earth guy, and you
oh,
know,
he's
I'm
chill.
I'm really wishing he changes his luck around because they need him. They need that arm, that rotation, and there's a reason why they didn't get rid of him. I'll put it that way.
He, he pitched well last time out. And he's obviously he's going to be your back end starter. I mean, that's just the way it is. He had that one magical year in 2022. He was hurt in 23, but I think he's going to be a solid back. He's a good back end guy. Actually, his numbers, a lot of other teams would beg for that. People don't realize that they would beg for a sub 4 or 3.8 or whatever it might be. I can guarantee you a lot of other teams, and you're going to have games where your guy gets absolutely just demolished, and they
Right.
yank him after 2 or 3 innings. It happens.
We're going to continue this conversation down the road, but you mentioned yanking a guy. I think of Paul Skeens getting pulled after no hit bids a couple times. As someone who's been following the game and writes about the game, does that frustrate you when these young kids are even pulled out for these, 90 pitches? I mean, it just seems like they're being babied a little bit.
I mean, that's just kind of the way the game has become, what the way the game has become now, because we're so scared of arm injuries. But now it's worse than ever before. I think guys want high velo guy. They want more velocity now than ever. I mean, sure, you get guys who rebel against the notion, like what Kyle Hendricks was able to do for years, what Shota Abanaga is doing now, and I think what other guys in this league are doing, where you got some guy. Well, I don't think you're going to find another Jamie Moyer like pitcher who could throw the ball so slow, yet you're not going to hit it.
Uh,
But it's just the way the game's going now. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. I mean, again, the old way has a way of coming back, and I think that this is just the way the game has gone. I mean, I'd love to see guys go 120, 130 pitches. I'm sure general managers would pass out at that notion now. But it's just the way it's just what the game has become nowadays. I mean, it's not bad or good. It's not bad or good. It just is.
well, Eric, one last thing before I let you go, and we can talk about analytics all day long and how
Oh.
analytics is completely affecting the sport. But maybe we'll save that for another conversation because I'm going to have you back on before the season's done. But we have a couple more months left in the season. Are you hoping to land a big Q&A interview with one of these guys, even if you're in Milwaukee? The internet and everything like that. Have you been reaching out to teams to get someone on your show or on your blog as in your writing to interview?
Well, I've been able to reach out to some writers and get some questions in the past. I got one coming up against, I don't know if you know his name, but Ray Negron.
Oh, I love Ray. He's like he is really a brother of mine. I love Ray. He's awesome.
Who George Steinbrenner of all people caught him graffitiing outside of all people. It's not like a
Well,
security guard.
there's a whole synchronicity there because he took me and Mr. Steinbrenner took my dad and I in to the Steinbrenner suite for 10 years after he saw me outside Yankee Stadium. So it's amazing the small world. Ray talked about my experience in the Bat Boy play for years, and now he's got a documentary coming out. Small world, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's done so much for the Yankees and probably arguably New York City in general. And I contacted him on Instagram. I didn't think he'd contact me, but he did, and he's willing to do a sit down.
By the way, thanks to Ray for continuing the legacy of Mr. Steinberger and doing so much good in New York. Where can we follow you, by the way? Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, you can follow me on from my blog, bellyupsports.com. You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, where I'm tweeting everything baseball. I also do some shows with something called the South Florida Tribune, where I'm on a baseball podcast called 108 Stitches.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well,
So
that's very cool.
I'm pretty out there.
I see that. All right. Let me rephrase one last question then. The dream interview you want to have, the dream sit down. Is it Aaron Judge? Is it, who's your dream sit down?
That's hard because the sport has a lot of athletes who are just incredible at what they do. I don't want to say Aaron Judge because I feel like everybody's going to want that. I'd say Derek Jeter.
Jeter is a great one for me. It's Chris Bryant, and there's a whole reason why, because Chris Bryant was called up. I kept calling first call up in 2015, got called up, won the World Series in 2016. My dad, a huge Cub fan, saw that, happen. And we just got Chris Bryant to sign a letter that the Cubs wrote to my dad. So
That's incredible.
that's the sit down I want to have, even if it's for a couple minutes on my show.
Bryant's a good guy. I remember him with the Cubs. It was I remember that year very, very, very well. I was in Illinois at the time too. I'm telling you, that World Series game game 7, Mother Nature couldn't even handle it with that rain delay.
That was, and you know what? I still say, they were doing their best, not the players, the manager at the time, doing their best to give it all away. But the Cubs players,
it was the curse.
I mean,
you just thought it was the curse right then and there at that point. And I remember they were down 2-1, 3-1. I don't remember which one it was. I'd have to go look, but I'm just thinking when they're going into that the 4th or the 5th game, you're just thinking, well, here we are, do or die. We have another game to play.
I think it was Joe Madden that managed the Cubs at that point.
He did. He did.
And he managed a little terrible, but that's another story for another day.
You could say what you want about Joe. Joe was Joe will always have a special place in Chicago. But it didn't end well for him there.
It was a mess, and of course the fire sale a couple of years after was just to see the core disband was insane.
Well, I thought they did the right thing because, to be honest with you, they were all good. I thought trading Bryant was the right thing to do. I thought trading Rizzo was the right thing to do. They just weren't going to get it, and they tried and tried and tried each year, but nothing really came about it. And I thought they did the right thing. I think their biggest problem was they kind of neglected pitching.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Eric Katz, thanks for your insights tonight, and enjoy this series.
I will.
Everybody's going to want the big sweep because, oh my God, they've won 5. Why not make it 8? I just want to win a series. That's what you got to do. Just keep winning series.
Just go for. Okay. You're obviously going into the game with a lot of confidence because you swept it. You swept a very good Philadelphia Phillies team on the road. Don't care if they're going through it or not. That's still Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and Trey Turner, and everyone else in that lineup, including you bashed them from game 1. But it's you want to take the series. Sure, win streaks are great, but you want to take the series. You stack enough series wins because the odds of you going on a 20-game win streak, a la Oakland A's or Cleveland Guardians or Indians at the time, are not very high. It's just such a random sport.
And one last thing, how did you link up with Belly Up? Is that your brand, or did you apply to write for them?
I applied to write for them. I met someone somewhere on Twitter, had a conversation, was kind of interested because I was looking for something to do, and then I was doing college football at first, and then I was just kind of going around, but I just found that my passion lies with baseball, and I wanted to. And I just wanted to do that just because it was just so much more fun to write about because there's always something going on in the sport, whether it be, it's such an exciting sport because it's such a long year too.
Absolutely. One thing after the other. All right. Well, Eric, I got to let you get back to the game. It's about to start. So thanks for joining me pregame here and enjoy this weekend.
Actually, I'm staring at it right now. It's in the event. I'm on MLB. I'm on the MLB.TV. It's saying it's in a weather delay.
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect timing to get all this in before the game tonight. So thanks for that update.
Yeah, no problem.
You're in Milwaukee. I'm literally, in Long Island, but I didn't pick up on that. So there you go.
Oh, you're in Long Island?
Yeah, we are, but I didn't even hear the rain. So there you go. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just staring at what they're telling me on the TV. So,
Eric, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Eric Katz, Alex Garrett Podcast Network.